Do you know that the man history books call the discoverer of America never once set foot on the continent of North America, never knew that North America existed, and died still believing he had found a route to Asia? Christopher Columbus is one of the most celebrated and most condemned figures in all of history. He has statues in dozens of countries and a national holiday named after him. He has also had those statues torn down by people who view him as the architect of centuries of destruction. Both reactions are about the same man, the same 4 voyages, the same geographical error so enormous that it reshaped the entire world and the man who made it never even knew. This is the full story of Christopher Columbus, the man who found a new world and had no idea what he had done.
The plan and the gamble. Columbus was a Genoese sailor with a consuming obsession. He believed Asia could be reached by sailing west across the Atlantic, and he was spectacularly wrong about the distances involved. He calculated the journey from the Canary Islands to Japan at approximately 3,700 kilometers. The actual distance sailing west is nearly 20,000 kilometers. He was wrong by a factor of more than 5. The experts who reviewed his plan knew he was wrong. The Portuguese rejected it. The Spanish Commission rejected it too. Their calculations of the Earth's size were more accurate than his. But Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain eventually agreed to fund 3 ships and a crew, not because they were convinced he was right about the distances, but because the potential reward was enormous and the cost was modest. It was one of the most consequential gambles in human history. Both sides were betting on something nobody fully understood. The Voyage. On August 3, 1492, Columbus sailed from southern Spain with 3 ships, the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and the Nina, and approximately 90 men. After resupplying in the Canary Islands, they headed west into open ocean on September 6th. What followed were 33 days of sailing across the open Atlantic, the longest stretch of open ocean any European fleet had ever attempted. The crew grew anxious. Columbus kept 2 logs. The official one recorded shorter daily distances than they had actually traveled, a deliberate deception to stop his crew calculating how far they were from home and panicking. By early October, there were murmurings of mutiny. And then at 2 in the morning on October 12, 1492, a lookout on the Pinta named Rodrigo de Triana spotted a white cliff in the moonlight and shouted the words that changed the world. Tierra, land.
The encounter. The land Columbus had reached was in the Bahamas. He named the island San Salvador. The people who already lived there, the Taino, called it Guanahani. They had inhabited these islands for centuries. They were organized, prosperous, and welcoming. Columbus described them in his journal as handsome, gentle, and generous. He noted that they brought gifts of food, water, and goods freely. And then, in the same journal pages, he wrote about how easily they could be conquered. He noted they had no iron weapons. He calculated that 50 Spaniards could subjugate them all. He began immediately thinking about how they could be made useful. The gap between those 2 observations, the warmth of the first meeting and the cold calculation of exploitation, is one of the defining tensions of Columbus's entire story. He explored the Caribbean for months. He visited Cuba and Haiti, and throughout he remained convinced he was in Asia, near Japan or China or the outlying islands of the Indies. He called the people he met Indians, a name born of a 5,000-mile geographical error that has lasted more than 500 years. The darkness. Columbus returned to Spain a hero. He was confirmed in his titles, and he went back to the Caribbean 3 more times. The second voyage brought 17 ships and 1,200 men. Not explorers, but colonizers. As governor of the islands he'd claimed for Spain, Columbus oversaw a system of forced labor and tribute that drove the Taino people to work in gold mines under brutal conditions. Those who failed to deliver the required quota of gold had their hands cut off. Resistance was met with military force. The Taino population of Haiti, estimated at several 100,000 when Columbus arrived, had been effectively destroyed within 50 years. The most devastating weapon the Europeans brought was not the sword or the cannon. It was disease. The indigenous peoples of the Americas had no immunity to smallpox, measles, typhus, and dozens of other European illnesses. Historians estimate that the indigenous population of the Americas, somewhere between 40 and 100 million people at the time of Columbus's arrival, declined by between 50 and 90% within a century of first contact. In 1500, Columbus was arrested by a Spanish royal commissioner sent to investigate complaints about his governance. He was returned to Spain in chains, stripped of his titles, stripped of his authority. He was eventually released, but he never regained the governorship. He died in 1506, still believing he had reached Asia, still not knowing what he had actually found.
What Columbus actually did and did not do. History has attached several claims to Columbus that need to be examined honestly. Columbus did not prove the Earth was round. Educated Europeans had known the Earth was spherical since ancient Greece. The experts who rejected his plan did so not because they feared he would sail off the edge, but because their calculations of the Earth's size were correct and his were wrong. Columbus did not discover America. Tens of millions of people were already living there and thousands of distinct civilizations. And he was not the first European to reach the Americas. The Norse explorer Leif Erikson established a settlement in Newfoundland around the year 1000, nearly 500 years before Columbus sailed. What Columbus did was initiate a contact that lasted. His voyages permanently connected the eastern and western hemispheres, triggering what historians call the Columbian Exchange. Crops like potatoes, tomatoes, maize, and chocolate moved from the Americas to the rest of the world. Horses, wheat, rice, and diseases moved in the other direction. The consequences of that exchange, positive and devastating in roughly equal measure, shaped the entire modern world. And the continent he reached was never named after him, because another Italian explorer, Amerigo Vespucci, was the first to publicly argue that it was a new continent, not Asia. A German cartographer named it America in 1507 in Vespucci's honor. Columbus, who sailed first, ended up with a holiday. What Columbus tells us. The story of Columbus tells us something important and uncomfortable about history. He set out to find a trade route to Asia. He found an entirely new world and never recognized it. He was wrong about where he was going, wrong about where he arrived, and wrong about what he had found. And in being wrong, in that particular way, at that particular moment, he changed everything. He was genuinely courageous. He was genuinely cruel. His voyages genuinely connected two worlds. They also genuinely initiated one of the largest demographic catastrophes in human history. History does not always resolve itself into comfortable judgments, and Columbus is one of the clearest examples of why. The people who change history most are not always the ones who understood what they were doing, and the most important moments in human history are rarely the ones that anyone planned. Christopher Columbus sailed west looking for Asia. He found the Americas and never knew it. He was wrong about where he was going. He was wrong about where he arrived, and in being wrong, he changed the world. History is never as simple as we were taught, and the people in it are never entirely heroes or entirely villains. If this changed how you see history, share this video, subscribe to Ancient Curiouz, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a fact that history forgot to tell you. New episodes every week. I will see you in the next one.